here's my submission for the PMM Festival. We'll be examining how some of the things that we do in film photography can also apply to music and practicing. A few days ago, when the weather was favorable, I shot a roll of Kodak Gold 200 through my Mamiya 645 medium format camera. This camera takes 120 film, which, on average, is about 3 times the size of standard 35. This makes it a good candidate for looking at and discussing the effects of exposure and reciprocity. At the moment, you may not understand what some of those terms mean, however, we already do similar things in music. At 2.8, the most amount of light possible for this lens is being let in, and what that does is essentially shock the film. This shock causes that blurring effect that you see in a lot of photos and movies these days. That effect is called depth of field. If you meter or read the light correctly and expose the film fittingly, you can use different combinations of aperture and shutter speed to get the same overall exposure, but different effects on depth of field. Every setting on a camera is rated to be one stop of light. Say you're at 1/500th of a second and you decide to switch to 1/250th. You are now increasing the light by half. You are essentially doubling the amount of light being let in. This is the same effect with ISO and aperture. So if you're at aperture 2.8 and you decide to switch to 4, you are now decreasing the amount of light available by half. Now you may be thinking to yourself, when are you going to touch on how this affects music? Don't worry, we'll get to that very soon, but I'll leave you one question for now. Is this not what we're doing when we're playing with octaves? As I've been explaining these technical aspects of photography, I've been showing a showcase of photos I took for this project, cycling through all the possible combinations of aperture and shutter speed, compensating for that doubling or halving of light while still maintaining the same overall exposure, but with changes to depth of field. When the aperture gets narrower and the shutter speed becomes slower, the control of light becomes more even and the film is exposed more regularly, decreasing that blurred depth of field, sharpening the image and enhancing your view of the details of the snowman or the pillar in the chair. By now, all the details in the photo are showing. This is the reciprocity that I mentioned earlier. These camera settings are not universal, so always keep in mind that you will have to readjust depending on the changing conditions on that scene or the general conditions for the day. Reciprocity also starts to fail when you start doing long exposures, and it fails at different points depending upon the film stock. But what of reciprocity's effects on exposures with portraits? Well, I took 3 with the last remaining exposures on the roll of myself smoking a cigarette. Here, the first portrait taken at f-stop 2.8 and 1/125th of a second. The second portrait was taken at f-stop 8 and 1/15th of a second. And finally, the final portrait taken at f-stop 22 and 1/2 of a second. The depth of field effect, called bokeh, often also manipulates the light in various ways, potentially with some modifications leading into geometric shapes or swirling of the image. The final image I'll leave you today is this portrait of a garden I took on a 1950s Zeiss Biotar lens for my Exacta VA 35mm camera. I've just played for you 2 examples of me demonstrating reciprocity on guitar. The guitar's tuning from a low E to a high E is arranged in thirds and fourths, and this tuning allows you to play in numerous different positions while still remaining in the same octave, and also giving you access to higher or lower notes depending on the context of the music that you need to play. This choice is further informed by your choice of timbre for the music that you're playing. The thicker gauge strings or the thinner gauge strings do have an impact on the sound that you are going to be making. A good contrast to this line of thinking is an acoustic keyboard instrument, as you cannot play a note outside of its assigned octave unless, of course, it's a prepared instrument. On screen now is a piece of music that I feel is afflicted by this and is a good demonstration that I have had to play before. There's not many places where you can play the opening line and then also play the line that comes in underneath, let alone the ascending Japanese fan. I've only found one place where this is comfortable to play for me. I found this place to be the 6th fret of the B string, and though you have many options for how to fret that note, the context of what surrounds you leads you to choose that as your only option. And this is similar in photography. Sometimes the light settings or the shot or the subject just requires certain things to be met and certain settings to be used. I feel we've reached a good conclusion to a moderately introductory conversation on reciprocity in music and in photography. On your screen now is one of the more extreme swirls that I've gotten out of my lenses. I hope to chase more and see what can happen. Thank you for listening. I've been Tom Fowler. Any questions, of course, feel free to contact me. Thank you. Have a good night.